Hello and welcome to East African Voices. I'm your host, Laban Clifton Serio, right here in Nairobi. Today I'd like to begin the show with something a little different. A product that you'll find on many East Africa's breakfast tables is this 500-gram Blueband tab. Ever asked yourself why there's a difference in price in Blueband across these 5 member states? Well, take for instance, in Tanzania, the 500-gram Blueband tab will cost you about 3,400 Tanzanian shillings, which is equivalent to about 180 Kenya shillings. In Uganda, it costs about 6,500 Ugandan shillings, which is about 206 Kenya shillings. And in Kenya, it's actually 140 shillings. So what might be the causes of a difference in price? Of course, transport is one cost. But as we're just about to find out, tax is also a huge element to the cost of this Blueband tab. Taxation is a subject many find dull, but it is at the core of the cost and ease of doing business within the region. The heads of state understood this, which is why one of the main protocols signed was the Common Market Protocol of July 2010, which provides for the fully harmonized tax regulation so as to spur the growth of a unified market. All jargon? Well, to get the full implication of this, we spoke to Sudhir Ruparelia, who is among Uganda's top businessmen and has business investments across East Africa. His office is a display zone of some of the awards he's received by his diversified interests in agriculture, transport and education sectors. So how much does he pay in taxes?
We pay around 40 billion a year in our overall taxes, all combined taxes, direct, indirect. And my God, we have all kinds of taxes in this country, more than 30 types of taxes.
We sought to find out how integrated or not tax is in the region.
Pretty much we all have the same taxes. Yes, there are differences in rates, there are differences in how we administer taxes. But overall, if you look at the tax structure, we are pretty much there. There's only a little bit of tweaking to be done to really bring our tax policies common to each other. So in that case, we are not very different to make the integration go ahead.
Sudhir tells us that a distorted tax regime has greatly impacted his business operations within the community. A wave of uncertainty over its operationalization also hangs on.
Are they going to have one treasury and then distribute it? Or are they still going to, we have to understand the mechanics of the distribution of the consolidated revenue collection and see how that will work. I think there's still a long way off.
The ease of a harmonized tax system stems from the East African Legislative Assembly, which is EAC's legislative arm. The woman at the helm of the August House tells us more.
First Assembly passed the Customs Management Act and was enacted in 2005. So it had to run between 2005 and 2010, mainly with about 3 objectives: harmonizing all the taxes within the East African community so that the region becomes one region.
In its 2013 Doing Business report, the World Bank outlines that combining of tax regimes across the 5 member states is one of the prerequisites to ensuring that the common market is realized.
We have seen the benefits of having a single customs union going to the next level where we still need to have permits to work in each other's country. A simple thing like that should not be existing if you really want to go towards a common market protocol.
Interestingly, there is great positive energy from the Commissioners General of the tax authorities in East Africa who have made headway in coming up with an East African revenue collection system whose rollout is still in progress.
The first step is to see that we have the procedures which are common, which are very similar when you trade, when you operate as a local. Because when a Kenyan company operates in Uganda or in Tanzania or in Rwanda or Burundi, it becomes a resident company. When you come as a resident company, you have to abide to the local tax or domestic tax system. And if you have to comply with the domestic tax system differently from where you come from, it becomes so difficult. So the first thing that we took as a region is to harmonize the procedure.
The unification of taxes across East Africa is a crucial step towards the ultimate goal of a monetary union as outlined in the Integration 4-Step Agenda. On the onset of the Single Customs Union demanded that goods are only charged tax once at the point of entry to a single customs territory. So how does this policy operate? We take the example of a busy border town in Namanga, manned by Kenya Revenue Authority.
If goods are coming from Kenya to Tanzania, the clearing agents based at Tanzania will launch an entry. And that entry is used to move these goods from the Kenyan side to the Tanzanian side.
Earlier, countries had hesitated towards the signing of the deal, though as it will later emerge, the merits were inevitable.
Previously, for every item, say you imported through Mombasa, you had to make a customs declaration there, secure the goods as they are moving through Kenya. When you reach the border with Uganda, you terminate the other one and do the similar thing at the border with Uganda, say to move the same goods to Kampala. What's happening now is that one declaration made at destination, in this case say Kampala, moves the goods from the beginning point to the end point. So the duplications are removed.
Initially, what they will do, or they're trying to do, is to each member state has open border, but the collection of taxes would be at the harbor, at the port. And then you do all your entries at the port, and also if Uganda is imported from Kenya, you do a pre-entry, which means you pay your taxes up front, then only the exporter from Kenya is able to load your goods, which is much more efficient because there's a lot of traders playing up who are not paying taxes. With this system, they all have to pay, and there'll be a better tax collection than before.
This would pave way for the single window system so as to cut down on the duplication of revenue collections. The union provides for the member states to have each representative situated at the port of Mombasa and Dar es Salaam.
Goods are passing through Mombasa, coming to Tanzania. Kenya used to have no control, no worry about it. But now they will have to know how much is duty and how is it paid. Tanzania will also want to know. So things will be transparent.
The seemingly smooth operations at the ports caused by the single window system is a complete opposite from what transpires at the border front. Here it seems trust in the system is yet to reach importers and exporters.
Sasa hivi, eti mtu container yangu imefika Mombasa, nilipe ushuru hapa. Sawa, sijaona container, basi nilipe ushuru, maybe Tanzania shilingi milioni 15 au shilingi 800 ya Kenya. Nimelipia hiyo container. Alafu inaletwa na escort. Ikichukuliwa na Al-Shabaab ikapelekwa huko juu. Nani atanifidia hizo gharama? Maana insurance inachukua miaka 10. Na mimi mtaji nimechukua benki hapa, lazima kila mwezi niwakilishe kila kitu kidogo kidogo.
Every time when you venture into unknown is a difficult venture. Unknown is always a point where you are scared. You don't know what happened because it's something that you don't know. But as you get along, you know what is offered, what is there. You become easy.
Kila nchi ikusanye mapato yake. Na habari nyingine inayofuata. Kwa nini mzigo unatoka Mombasa wakuja hapa uende Tarime au Msoma? Hapa ni nearby. Somehow kilomita 200. Lakini huyo mfanya biashara anakwepa kupita Silari hapa Hispania, enda Silari border, anaenda Maraba, anaingia Mutukula, anakuja Kagera huko, anarudi Mwanza. 2300 km. Anakwepa nini hapa?
The East African community plans to set up 15 one-stop border posts across the 5 member states, a move that will see border procedures eased so as to increase efficiency in clearance. The construction of one-stop border posts at various points across East Africa will be a step forward towards tax harmonization, as revenue officials in either countries will sit at one point, a move that will also reduce clearance times.
Kwa hiyo majengo mapya wanaenda kufungua, nafikiri itatusaidia hii mambo ya one border entry, kwa sababu ukiingia tu unafanya unapigiwa tu muhuri moja na unapata mwingine anakupigia unaenda. Itayarisha mambo ya biashara kati ya Kenya na Tanzania.
However, traders in Tanzania are yet to get fully aware of the one-stop border posts.
Mpaka sasa hivi tunajua tu ni one border post, lakini itatusaidia nini? Itatufaidi nini? Kama watu wana manga hatujui. Na hakuna mtu ambaye tokeza siku moja akatueleza kinagaubaga kwamba ile eneo litatusaidia kwa sababu.
Doubts and a seeming lack of proper information faces business people across all sectors. Though the move towards strengthening a common market through combining tax regime is a welcome move, the challenge is on ensuring a proper flow of information to taxpayers.
Wafanyabiashara hawakwenda shule. Ina maana wanataka wao wanafika hapa wanalipa mzigo wanaondoka. Kwanza kwenye system ya kuloji sijui trap hadi Dar es Salaam, yani ni usumbufu mkubwa mno.
Public education has been identified as one of the sure ways to ensure that worries around the fully harmonized tax system are reduced, and part of the initiatives are the reading materials stored here at the East African Community Headquarters to address this. East African Voices takes a commercial break. We'll be back with more. Welcome back to East African Voices. Still staying with matters tax harmonization in East Africa. Not only does VAT affect the price of Blue Band on your breakfast table, it also affects the prices of your loaf of bread under the vatable items. Now, in a move across East Africa, we met Commissioners General who made rather surprising and politically tricky recommendations regarding the VAT rates in East Africa.
At the moment, we have all other countries charging 18%. Kenya is charging 16%. We are humbly asking Kenya to raise to 18%. You know, when you harmonize, you have to accept. It's a give and take.
A proposal that has raised sharp reactions from tax experts.
See, that's the difficult part. In Kenya, let's not look at the rates, but look at the tax collection. Kenya's tax collection is 25% of GDP. And this is amongst the world's highest standards. Okay, if you look at Tanzania, it's probably around the 18% mark. And so you know, increasing the tax rate in Kenya is going to be seen as, you know, taxing the citizens even higher than the normal benchmark that is there, because it's got a big tax base. Tanzania, on the other hand, has to increase its tax base. So the issue is, why don't we tighten our tax collections and improve our tax collections rather than increasing the rate of VAT? And secondly, it's not the rate that also makes the big difference. You know, you can have a 16% rate and an additional 2% sales rate or something in Tanzania if they want to maintain it at 18%.
When we started Tanzania, we were at 20%. Uganda was at 18%, Kenya was 16%. And Tanzania we said, okay, for the spirit of the EAC, let's harmonize. And for us, we'll harmonize to 18%. And we were expecting Kenya to come up from 16 to 18%. I know it's very sensitive. But yes, we agree, and even in our countries, people would like to see the rates are going down, not up. So going up is very difficult, and I truly appreciate that it's very difficult for Kenyans to decide to go up.
Another issue is whether technology could help member states in tax collection.
ICT is such a key enabler in widening the tax base to the extent that you can be able to track all the transactions. For example, if you pick on mobile money services, you can be able to have an audit trail of who has transacted what. And by doing that, if you position yourself and have strong intelligence tools as a tax administration, you'll be able to get people into the tax net.
Initially, there were duplication of processes. But now it is only one single declaration is done. And previously there used to be two declarations that a cow cut into Namanga, export entry is done that will export these goods to Tanzanian side. And the same thing, that same consignment, it gets to Tanzania, a declaration or import declaration is done. So the two declarations have been merged into one. We have only one single declaration and it is done online. So it has reduced in terms of the time frame, the time taken to clear the cargo. So it's more of, it's very quick.
There is no tax on transit goods because there is already a bond that has been executed to cover these goods right as they enter our community, right from Mombasa, and as they enter these other partner states of ours. When they reach Malaba, they execute a bond to cover these goods from Malaba to Katuna, for example. Now, the tax implication is in this bond. It's not in now, it's now electronic money.
As for Sidir, systemic failure may just be a key challenge to a harmonized tax system.
We feel that the revenue authorities in these relevant countries don't even know their own systems. And Uganda being a landlocked country, we have huge problem with, regular emails. Recently, we had interruptions on the internet. For about 10 days, the revenue was not functioning. You could see miles and miles of vehicles standing at the border because you can't process your entries.
On exportation, we realize that in the different countries exists different tax systems. Take for instance, if a Kenyan imports a car to the country, he uses the Simba technology system, while a Tanzanian uses Stansis and a Ugandan uses Askuda World. Upon the launch of a single customs union, the target was to have one system. Implementation of this plan has not quite gone smoothly.
Without Askuda World, there would have been no single customs territory because the linking of systems and communications, the previous systems would not have been able to operate like that.
It's not about what system you have. It's about how the system communicates. Where we are now, we have a platform where these systems communicates, and that's what we want to see.
Sasa hivi mmeleta tena system nyingine Tanzania. Stansis. And Stansis ina maana kwamba mtu aje na dokumenti kutoka kiwandani, aje uloji dokumenti, ukishaloji dokumenti, urudi na dokumenti ambazo umelipia ushuru, uende kiwandani ndio pakia mzigo. Hiyo kitu haitawezekana.
Posing a challenge to policy players on information rollout to traders on the ground.
The process of implementation of certain decisions, especially that depart from status quo, is always difficult. And here really what we need are not more telephone lines to communicate with the people. We need better listeners on the other end.
Coupled with the strong ICT frameworks, member states need to also leverage on the legal backing. Policy implementation to support the use of ICT is welcome. Currently, there is a bill before the East African Legislative Assembly that looks into the matters presented by East Africans. The bill provides for the speedy implementation by member states to ensure that ultimately there is a way in the harmonization of taxes.
Laws are brought through the legislative process. They are brought to the House. and they are proposed as bills at the first stage, which is the first reading. Then it goes through the second stage, which is the committee stage, and then the third stage, which is normally the approval stage. And then from there, it is forwarded. I forward those bills then to the heads of state. The heads of state finally assent, and that now becomes a law, which is implemented by both the partner states and the institutions of the East African community.
Also, how can the legislative arm of the EAC crack its whip on countries seemingly slow in implementation?
The enforcement agencies are the partner state institutions, not necessarily the East African community institutions. And at various times when we meet, there is always reporting. And we as YALA at times have a role, not at times, but we always have a role of oversight.
The goal at the end of the day is to have a unified common market which will appeal to the community. It is this unification that will lead towards borderless trading by businessmen, ultimately setting the stage for the entry of the single monetary union. The bedrock of all this is a unification of tax laws and a will by the political class.
Let's standardize our tax system and have one regional tax system. Let's bring movement of labor. And third, let's have our double tax treaties in force so that we don't have double taxation, we eliminate double taxation. And those are going to be three critical elements of making this region one region.
Jumping on everything at a go would create disruption. But once you move one step, another step, as long as the direction is clear and the political will, the direction is clear, I think it's achievable.
If this works truly like the way it's supposed to work, like European community, the way it works, I think then East Africa would benefit a lot.
It is here at the East African Legislative Assembly Plenary Hall where tax harmonization laws are deliberated upon by member states, and the Assembly has its work cut out to ensure that common laws apply across the 5 member states. And that's where we leave it at on East African Voices this week. We would love to hear from you. Like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter at East African Voices, or feel free to write to us. Our email address is on your screen. Till same time next week, it's goodbye.
Yeah.